live. A little bit off. Let's see. There we go. Sam is coming as usual. We're getting things all set up. Thanks so much for joining us. We are finishing part 2. We started a series on long-term food preservation. It was probably 3 weeks ago now. We had to take a week off because Annie wasn't feeling well, and then we had to take a week off because it was the 4th of July, and then now we're back. So right now it's...
Sorry, folks, trying to fix the...
Okay, right now it's playtime.
Is that a little better, maybe?
Okay, I'll take care of it in a minute. Okay, go play. Yeah, so we're going to finish it. Oh no, our tripod has so many problems. Let's see here. We can fix it. Sorry about that. Okay, so anyway, we're going to finish it. So last time we talked about, let's see, we talked about canning and we talked about freezing foods. And this week we're going to talk about hardening off foods and dehydrating, which also includes like freeze drying, as ways to do long-term food preservation. Freezing and canning are the most common ones that people choose, so we talked about those first. And canning is probably my favorite because in terms of long-term sustainability, canning is really awesome. It takes foods that are not shelf-stable at all, and it turns them shelf-stable for the really long term, like years even, or more than years. I mean, if you want to really get adventurous, technically it's a vacuum seal, so, you know, my friend, I think it was Adrian, asked me if I found a 50-year-old jar of jelly, would I open it and lick it? And I don't know if it was still sealed and you got a good hiss off of it. I mean, it's a vacuum in there. It's like shooting it off into space and then getting it later, so probably. Welcome, Tessa and Pam. Thanks for joining us. Let's see. Anything while we're waiting for more people to join us? What else we got going on? Sam is halfway through his first semester of clinical stuff. He's been working really hard.
Tell him about that guy's channel we watched, the World War II stuff. Goodness.
Oh yeah. So we have a channel that we love to watch. It has nothing to do with homesteading at all. It's called Steve MRE, right? That's his name?
Steve MRE, like
1989 or something like that. Yeah, it's this guy, and he buys old army rations, like from World War II, and he buys them from warehouses that have them just like stockpiled somewhere, and he'll open them up, and he'll actually like eat some of them if they still, but he always says when he opens like the can, he gets the key, like these have open tin cans, if it still hisses at him, he's like, ooh, good hiss. And so every time we open a home can jar of whatever, Sam's always like, ooh, good hiss. But anyway, if you like a little bit of history and just random history, I guess, Steve MRE 1989, we love that channel. I can't even explain why it's so interesting. It's just fascinating. And part of it's fascinating because he opens, really old military rations. It's incredible that, like, any soldier survived World War I because there's like 300 calories in those ration packs because they didn't have ways to do long-term food preservation. And then he opens the more modern ones and they got like pizza and lasagna and all sorts of crazy things, and it's like 2,000 calories in a bag and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool.
Just a little bit more.
All right, so welcome Beth, and Grammy is here, and Pat's here. She's my old math teacher.
All right.
So, and Tara's here, and Pam. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. So Sam, anyway, before we dive in, you have anything you want to say about nursing clinicals or school or anything?
No, we don't really have like a midterm test, but we're halfway through our first term. We have 6 terms. This is one of the longer ones. This first one is 10 weeks, but most of them will be 8 weeks long, I believe. So it's going well. I don't feel like it's overwhelming as long as I put in the work. And so the only that they have told us that this week, as far as tests go, I have my test tomorrow morning. This is the hardest week as far as tests go. So I'm a little nervous about that. It's over the cardiovascular and respiratory system. So there's a lot there.
There is.
But I've just been cranking it out, doing my best, working hard. It does eat up a lot of time.
It does. He spends a lot of time studying.
There's just so much to read. It really is. But I am enjoying it. I told Laura, this is gonna I don't have a lot of skills yet as a nurse. I know how to do vital signs, and like I said,
pretty good at wiping buns.
we're working on the respiratory system and auscultating. That's listening to your heart and lung sounds. So we've been working on that, but like a lot of the stuff I do right now is really basic. Like Laura said, it's wiping buns. But I told her I know I'm just starting out, but I do feel really fulfilled in this job when I'm doing it so far. I mean, it's just school, it's not a job yet, but a lot of those people that I am wiping buns or changing sheets or, getting their vital signs, doing whatever I can, getting them a glass of water. A lot of those people cannot take care of themselves, or they're just in a bad spot for right now. And it feels really good to help people like that, even though it's not the most glorious thing all the time. Maybe at some point when I get more skills, I'll be doing some stuff that's a little bit more intense, but it does feel really fulfilling just to be able to help people. I really enjoy that. What color are my scrubs? They're supposed to be like a forest green, but they're a little bit lighter color, and so we call ourselves the Jolly Green Giants.
It is kind of the color, yeah.
It's a little bit of a lighter green, both top and bottom. But
they're really nice. Like, I'm a little jealous of his scrubs. Like, they're comfortable. Like, I want some for Jimmy's.
Yeah, they're almost like wearing pajamas. I will say they're kind of an odd color. Not a lot of people have them, and it is kind of nice because I can spot my classmates or my clinical instructors from far away, like on the other side of the hospital if I need somebody. So that part's kind of nice. But
all right, so let's dive in for long-term food preservation, talking about hardening off and dehydrating today. And we'll actually start with the dehydrating because that one, I don't know, we were actually just doing that yesterday. It was fun. So I have a dehydrator. I don't know if you can, that's too hard to get down. I should have taken it down before. So dehydrating, basically you are removing, it's what it sounds like, you're removing water at a slightly elevated temperature in order to prevent things from spoiling. And you can dehydrate quite a lot of things. A lot of campers really like dehydrating, and backpackers, because you can pack like a whole meal in a little tiny Ziploc bag because you've taken all the water out of it. And you could add water later to have a stew, or you could just dehydrate fruits, and you can get a lot of energy from just a handful of dehydrated items without having to carry a lot of weight on your back.
Here's the dehydrator. I know it's kind of hard to see. I could show you the...
So I just wanted to show you, and I apologize, it's kind of dirty because we were just using it and I didn't clean it off all the way yet. But I have a Dehydro that I bought at Walmart for I feel like it was like $60. It's got 4 stackable trays. It's a really simple dehydrator. You can go crazy big with dehydrators and crazy expensive with temperature selection and things like that. This is a very basic dehydrator. I'll find it and link it when this posts live if you want to look at the one I have. Because if you are just thinking about starting dehydrating things, this is a great way to just get your foot in the door without making a big investment. It's going to get the job done. You're not going to be able to do anything super fancy, but you can do basic dehydrating.
You could probably also go to garage sales or look on the Facebook marketplace, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that bought them and then they're still in the box and they never touched them. And you can get one for, $20 or something real cheap. And
one of the reasons for me that it took me so long to get started on dehydrating things is I wasn't sure how to store things after I dehydrate. Because if you store things in a container, say you dehydrate 100 bananas and you store them in a big gallon jar, the problem is every time you open the lid on that jar and start grabbing bananas, you're kind of disturbing, I'm trying to think the right word, they're going to go bad faster once you start opening that lid and sticking your hands in there. And so it can feel really defeating, at least that's how I felt at first. Would dehydrate a bunch of stuff and I would get halfway through the container and it would start going bad, and I was like, what am I doing wrong? Because I didn't know anything about dehydrating. So things like oxygen absorbers can help. So when you put that lid back on, it'll suck up the oxygen. Some people vacuum seal them can't think of the words, they're the bags, you stick them in the little heat thing and it zips it up. or they have vacuum seal pumps for mason jars. So once you dehydrate them, you really want to try to keep as much air out of there as you can until you are ready to use it. And you want to either put them in small amount bags so that when you open it up, you're going to use basically that whole amount, or you need a large container that's got oxygen absorbers in there so you can open it and then close it and have the oxygen taken out. So what do we got here?
I remember my clinical days well. Wait for the renal testing. And
Welcome,
JP says hello.
Welcome.
There.
So easy things for dehydrating. Fruits are great, and one of the really nice things with fruits is having a lot of kids. They love fruit, and fruit gets expensive, right? Especially in the winter. But with dehydrating, like this week I went to the grocery store and they had a big bag of bananas that were kind of on their way out, but they weren't bad enough for banana bread. And it was $1 for probably like 5 or 6 pounds, probably more than that, of bananas. And so Micah helped me. She sliced them all up, put them on the dehydrator for like 5 hours, and we made banana chips, which became a snack, which, because the number of children we have, only lasted like 24 hours. But I was able to make, $1 worth of food made a day's worth of snacks for all those kids.
I was going to say, I think for our family, that's the biggest downside with dehydrating things, is that we just go through it so fast because we have so many kids.
Yeah.
Like, you could spend all day, like Laura said, you could spend all day chopping stuff up and dehydrating it, and it's
gone like that.
They love dehydrated fruit, especially. Man, they just
Right.
suck it down like candy.
So this week we did bananas and strawberries. Pam says she likes dehydrated watermelon. I've heard that that is
hello,
like...
Silver Moon and Homestead Nana.
Okay. I heard that dehydrated watermelon it's almost like jerky, like it's chewy. Is that true? So you have to let me know. The kids are supposed to be outside playing, but they're all trying to get in the house right now. So that's what that noise is. They said they wanted to play outside. We give them options. When we do a live stream, they can play outside. They can go upstairs. Sometimes we let them use tablets. Today they chose play outside, but nobody actually wants to stay outside right now. So anyway, Pam, let me know, dehydrated watermelon, what's that texture like? I heard it's kind of chewy, which actually sounds good, almost like a gummy snack. So, not hard like jerky. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. So some other things that I've dehydrated, we just do a lot of fruits because those are things the kids eat, but I will dehydrate, I will take like strawberries and bananas and put a little bit of honey in there and put them in like the food processor or the blender, and then you can buy a flat sheet, or you can buy trays that actually sit in your dehydrator. You're gonna have to help Isla; she doesn't understand the go around.
Oh.
And you pour it in there, and you put the dehydrator on, and then it makes like a fruit leather, which is basically like a fruit roll up. And we've done those. I used to do those a lot in the past. I stopped doing it so much because my dehydrator only has 4 trays, and I would it's kind of a bit of work, and I would make the fruit leathers, and they would be gone like before they cooled off. So we're at the point where I kind of want a larger dehydrator because I want to be able to make healthy snacks. If you've been watching this, like we've been talking about doing more whole foods for the kids, which a lot of that means prepping snacks, and dehydrated fruits. Fruit leathers are great options, but right now, like, I would have to dehydrate all day to have snacks, like one set of snacks for the next day, and having to do that every day, that's a huge task. So I'd love to have a larger one, a really nice big one, and be able to make snacks, like, for the whole week. Like, maybe Saturday we start dehydrating stuff, and then I got snacks for the whole week. So some people do dehydrate vegetables. One of the really good things to dehydrate are like zucchini. And I've seen people, especially Heidi at Rain Country Homestead, if you've ever watched her channel, she takes her zucchini, she dehydrates it, and then she mashes it up, and it makes like a zucchini flour. Obviously, it's not going to have gluten, so you have to be careful like what recipes you use it in if you need a rise. But I think she uses it to make like tortillas. I think it uses like a thickening agent. But zucchini is one of those things a lot of people grow in their garden, and then you put one plant in, suddenly you have 600 zucchini. And so one of her ways of preserving it is to dehydrate it and then mash it up like a flour. Irene, who's usually here with us, and I don't think she's here tonight, a lot of times she said that she likes to dehydrate mushrooms and then she grinds them up to make a mushroom powder. And that's how she makes her cream of mushroom soup. Because mushrooms is one of those things, you buy mushrooms and they go bad really fast. And so she can have mushrooms for things that she has, like the mushroom powder, and then you can add it to things that you want a mushroom flavor for without having to constantly buy mushrooms and use half of them and then having them go bad. So I thought that was kind of clever as well. Something else that I have tried before, I have not done this in a long time, but I've dehydrated like peppers and tomatoes together with some onions, and then I put those tiny little dehydrated pieces in like a mason jar, and then you can throw it in a pot of chicken stock to rehydrate it, and it makes like a really fast vegetable soup. But you're not, because the content is so small, when I can vegetable soup, I have to have room for a quart jar. But if I have everything dehydrated in little packs, we eat a chicken for dinner, the next day I use the bones to make broth, I can throw those vegetables in, and we have vegetable soup, really good quality with, our homegrown vegetables, but it didn't take up tons of space in my smallish pantry. So, do you have anything? That was a lot of me rambling. So
I don't really have much to add.
So if you dehydrating things, let us know what you dehydrate. This is something that, like I said, there's some things that I do, and those are the things that I do. But I think there is like a whole world out there of dehydrating. And dehydrating, I guess the bottom line is dehydrating is a great option for those people who want long-term food preservation, have very limited space. Because again, you're removing that water content, and you can really cram a lot of stuff in small space when you've taken all the water out of it.
And says, I like to dehydrate onions. I make my own onion powder as needed. Dehydrated tomato skins for tomato powder.
That's a great idea.
Ooh, that's a really good way to repurpose that.
What do you use tomato powder for? Like, what do you because that's not something I keep on my shelf. So what if I made tomato powder, like what would I use it for?
Yeah, I will say, like, as far as the preserving stuff, we haven't done a lot of dehydrating.
It's pretty specific.
Could probably definitely dive a little deeper.
Yeah. And that's one of those things that the two older girls, they're now big enough. Dehydrating is something that they could do with almost no help. Like, that's what they did. They made banana chips and strawberry chips. They don't need any help. They understand the concept. You don't want the pieces to touch and how it works.
Yeah, and the dehydrator's not something that's going to hurt them.
Yeah, it's not real hot or anything like that. So I think they would probably enjoy. That'd be a way that they can help more without needing me to help them. Because, they love to can, but that's obviously not something they can do by themselves at 7 and 9 that they help.
Yeah.
So.
And they get to enjoy that reward of, dehydrated strawberries or banana chips or whatever pretty quick after they've dehydrated.
So Holly, welcome Holly. She says she does a lot of dehydrating. I buy frozen veggies when on sale, dehydrate and put in mason jars, then vacuum seal the jars. That is a great
really good idea.
Sometimes there are really good sales, like especially on frozen veggies. Pam says tomato powder can be turned into pizza sauce. Ooh. Okay, that's great. That's a great idea. So maybe there'll be some videos coming up of me trying new dehydrating things, especially with the garden starting to go crazy now. So that's always great. Anne says I use the tomato powder in soups and any dishes or casseroles I want to add a bit of tomato flavor. Okay, that makes sense. And Sally says I make fruit leather for the grandkids, mushrooms, and lots of fruits and berries. Yes, fruit leathers are one of my kids' favorites. Especially JJ and Isla. They love anything that's chewy like that. They just eat the whole tray themselves.
It's one of those things, if you don't watch them, pretty soon they've had like 6 fruit leathers and you're wondering where the whole tray went.
The one downside of dehydrating from a healthy living standpoint is because you are removing the water volume, you can cram a ton of calories in a small space and a lot of sugars in a small space. So you got to kind of watch it a little bit. A handful of blueberries is 10 blueberries. A handful of dried blueberries is like 50 blueberries. So your kids can really down a whole lot of sugars, and I mean natural sugars, but a whole lot of sugars and calories without even thinking about it. So that's one thing to kind of keep an eye on.
Those little ones can be a little sneaky too, because they're so quiet. If you're not watching them, those little hands, sneak up there and grab stuff if you're not careful.
Okay, so hardening off. So the other thing, this is one of my funnest is funnest a word? Because funniest is a
Sure.
word. Okay, I don't know.
We'll go with funniest.
Things that I've learned since we've been
Most
here on the
enjoyable.
most enjoyable or most surprising lessons is how many vegetables actually and fruits actually can last quite a long time at room temperature if you pick them and kind of harden what they call hardening off. And it's different for each thing. But the first year that we lived here, I planted I'm not going to say by mistake, because I planted them on purpose, but without a full understanding of how much yellow squash, like 8 squash plants will give you, okay?
Oh, man.
We had yellow squash coming out of our ears. So
we gave it to so many
we were
people.
giving it
and we
away.
still had.
I made yellow squash soup, yellow squash fritters.
Oh.
I hid yellow squash in anything I have I found a yellow squash casserole recipe, which is delicious. That I'm glad that we did that. We had to find that because it was really good. But I realized that if you let the squash get bigger, so it's a little bit harder on the outside, and you picked it, they lasted like 6 months just in a dark closet. Like, we were stacking them in what is now our laundry room, but it wasn't really a laundry closet back then because we just had the tiny little washer. And so there were just a lot of shelves, and I would just stack them on top of each other. We were still eating squash at Christmas time that I had picked in like July. So a lot of vegetables can last probably 6 months, some root vegetables even longer if you give them the right conditions. So the ones that I was really surprised about were the squashes, the yellow squash and the zucchini. It's important though that you make sure you pick them when they are not at their tenderest. So, you see the zucchini that you want for making zucchini bread that's about, this big. It's about a foot, maybe even a little bit shorter, and they're skinny. They're nice and tender. Those are the really good ones for stir frying. That's going to go bad. You need them to get like the baseball bat zucchini, like the one that you're like, oh no, I forgot that zucchini was in there and now it's the size of my baby. Those are the kind of zucchinis because their skins are tougher and harder that you can store. And you also need to make sure that there's no damage because sometimes, you might nick one when picking. You need to make sure you pick it and it has the full, like, woody stem on top, that you didn't accidentally pop the stem off because that will cause it to start to go bad. So it's kind of, think of it like a pumpkin. It's got to have the stem on top. And then it'll last a really long time. The same goes for your yellow squash, your butternut squashes, your spaghetti squash. And you want to keep them someplace cooler and dark, but not like in a fridge. I kept them in a closet.
You keep them in like your basement, something like that.
If you have a basement that's not, if the moisture is high, so if your basement's really humid, even if it's cool, it'll make it go bad fast. But that was really surprising to me. Wow, sorry, we'll catch up.
Embracing Our Life says, so glad I caught a live. You all are so encouraging. I secretly wish we were neighbors.
So
Sending love
you.
to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Homestead Nana says tomato soup with the tomato power. And Tara says, that's crazy. I feel like they go bad in 3 days when I get them from the store.
And it's true. It's because at the store, they're selling them at what they consider like the most appetizing. They're very tender and young. They don't have big seeds in them. The big ones are going to have huge seeds, and you can save the seeds and plant zucchini for next year. But nobody wants to eat those seeds, right? So the grocery store sells you what is most palatable, but it's not necessarily good for long-term food storage.
I think that 1 year we literally ate some form of yellow squash every day for at least one meal, some form or another. We ate so much yellow squash. It was crazy. We were just trying to start our homestead. We couldn't sell our house in town, like it wasn't moving, and that was definitely a very influential time in our life, I guess, because that was probably one of the times we were really dealing with some food insecurity, and now that's why I'm so passionate about food preservation, because you just never know what financial situation you're going to be in. And there really aren't a lot of good reasons for food not to be stocked up. If you're in a good time right now where you have a little bit of extra money, there's so much you can do with just a little bit of extra money to save food and to put it away, so that at a time in the future when things are not as good and you need extra money, you need to save money on your budget, you never have to worry about food, and you never have to worry about the health ramifications of eating yellow squash 3 meals a day 2 months in a row. So I think too, we talk a lot of times what if you get to a point where you break a leg or something, you can't go to the store as much. But I think a lot of this food preservation too, it can help in just being convenient. That you almost have a whole grocery store in your house at times, and if you're running short on time, you've got stuff that you can pop open real quick and make a really fast meal.
So Pam says both yellow and zucchini can be sliced and dehydrated into chips, as can radish. Yes, and also I have made kale chips before. That's kind of a popular one too.
Holly says I have made apple pie filling and pineapple chunks out of zucchini.
So you baked, like you hid the zucchini in your apple pie, or you flavored zucchini like you would flavor an apple pie and nobody noticed?
Embracing Our Life says, I'm trying to dehydrate fruits to make my own medicinal tea blends and fruit leaves. Laura's made some little bit of tea, experimenting.
I will tell you, Embracing Our Life, I don't know what kind of teas that you like to make. One thing I found to really enhance the flavor of homegrown teas, like if you're wild foraging, like we do blackberry or sometimes use apple or mulberry leaves, is if you ferment them. So you just like take a rolling pin and just go over your clean leaves like this, so that it crushes them a little bit, and then you put them in a mason jar with a lid on it, and you just leave it on your counter like that for like 3 or 4 days, and the leaves will start to ferment, and then you dehydrate them, and it really like encapsulates a stronger flavor. So you may already know that, you may have already tried that, but that's something that took my tea from, I taste a hint of something, to, wow, that's a great tea flavor. So
see, I haven't forgot about that video using my old-fashioned canning stuff, switching editing software. Oh yeah, that can be a learning process.
That's always frustrating.
Zucchini pickles are good too.
Yes, and we learned all about zucchini relish last time, so I'm going to try that this year. That'll be interesting. So flavored zucchini and can in pineapple juice for pineapple chips.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Okay. I have so many things I want to try this year. The other hardening off, so sweet potatoes and potatoes. I don't store potatoes long term, and the reason for that is because our basement is too moist. Yeah. They don't last. But for potatoes and sweet potatoes, a trick that I learned from our friend Gerald, who has since passed away, but he was just a wealth of Great Depression survival knowledge because he lived through it. He said that his mom would save all the newspapers, and then she would wrap sweet potatoes, and apples in newspaper, and then store them in crates in their basement, and they would be eating apples that they picked in October. They'd be eating them in April, and he said they were still just fine. So when you store something long-term like a potato, you do need some sort of moisture retardant, I guess. And the newspaper also acts as a barrier, because every once in a while you'll get a potato that you missed that maybe was nicked and it goes bad really fast, and the newspaper helps contain that so that
doesn't spread.
Yeah, so it doesn't spread. You should still be going through anything that you're storing long term. You still should be going through it every couple of weeks to check for things like that. But the newspaper, if you're checking every week, it'll be the difference between, I got to throw 1, maybe 2 potatoes away, and I got to throw the whole box away. So
Glenda says, one thing we love out of zucchini is to make gummies out of them. Peel them and seed them, allow them to boil in juice till translucent. Drain them and place them on dehydrator trays. They are amazing.
Oh, that's really interesting. I will have to try that. Our kids love gummy fruit snack thingies.
Holly says, I also make zucchini salsa. And Embracing Our Life says, oh, good idea. See, we would be great neighbors.
Yeah.
I'll have to try that.
So, I do want to try, I do definitely want to try zucchini relish. I'll have to try the zucchini with the pineapple too, maybe even dehydrating them. So I only planted 1 zucchini plant this year because Sam told me I'm never allowed to plant more than 1 zucchini or yellow squash again.
Well, it's more the yellow squash. Zucchini I'm okay with. The yellow squash.
I planted a lot of butternuts though and spaghetti squashes because those are really good and very easy to store long term.
You can use those in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, and I use them for a lot of different ways. So those are my favorite. And I really like butternut squash, and I can't really explain why. It's just one of my favorite vegetables.
We've eaten a lot of spaghetti squash too in the past.
And then I had one more. Oh, onions. So I don't know if you can see right there. It's my tiny bunch of onions left. So this year, onion planting season was right after Annie's surgery, and there was no way I was going to be putting 200 onion bulbs in the ground then. So I only put like 25 in the ground. We had a tiny little onion garden. But onions will last I mean, there's been years I've harvested onions and we're still eating them in March and April and they're just fine.
Forever.
It lasts forever. And we have a video about onion breeding, but it's so easy. You don't really need, I mean, watch the video, watch the ad, make me 2 cents, please. But after that, you don't, you can do it on your own. It's very simple. The key is for onions and for garlic, you want to make sure that you pick them before they flower. If they go to flower, they get that little bud on top, they will not be good for long-term food storage. They'll go bad too fast. So those you pick and you're going to eat those first. Onions, your tops will fall over and you wait about a week after the tops fall over and then you can pick them. And then I just lay them out just on a counter somewhere for a day or two. Let the leaves dry up a little bit and then just braid them like you would braid your kids' hair so you get this long onion chain. And then anywhere you can hang it, I have these coat hooks that are all along this long wall here. It's just like 25 of these coat hooks.
Yeah, a couple years ago we had
everything.
onions and garlic all
just
the
on
way.
every hook.
Yeah,
there's no room for coats. And they just hang there. And then when you need one, you just yank it off.
You've seen like pictures of old farmhouses and stuff, and they've got them hanging, by the ceiling or whatever.
And just like with your potatoes or anything that you would be storing long term, you do want to go through and check them every once in a while. There will always be one that for some reason goes bad, and you just want to pull it out before that spreads to your other ones. But onions and garlic, especially if you kind of think about how many onions you might eat in a year, you can plant that many. For us, it's really early March. Harvest it at the beginning of July, and then you should have enough onions to last you until next July when you harvest again. They will last so long. The onions that you are buying at the grocery store, a lot of times those are already like 3 to 6 months old. They've been sitting around in a warehouse somewhere. Onions are just great long-term holders. So Tara says, I need to do onion and garlic this year. I use this every day. Yeah, me too.
When you did the garlic, I mean, we use it a lot.
Oh, yeah. This year, I do want to try. I say it every year, and then I never do it. Like, I'm going to plant garlic in the fall this year because you get a much larger bulb if you let it overwinter instead of planting it when I plant my onions. I'm determined. It's going to happen. I'm saying this live to make sure it happens.
Refining Root says, I'm late. Hope you guys are doing great.
All right. Thank you for joining us. Mr. P is... He's being so loud.
Song.
He's singing his song.
He really does like to sing, though.
He does. When we watch little animated movies, he just yells along every time they sing. It's really cute. So, he also, we call him our vampire baby because for some reason his incisors have grown in, but he has no 2 front teeth. So
it's really cute.
It's cute, but a part of me is like, is that something you call a dentist about? Because like, aren't the big front teeth supposed to come in before the vampire teeth? But he's just got a big gap there, and he's got his little pointy teeth, so I don't know what's going on there. But he's cute, so, and he's loud. All right. Do you guys have any questions about any type, or lessons that you want to share? Because we definitely do not know. What we know is just the tip of the iceberg. So let's remind each other. Yeah, I'll give you a nudge in September when I'll be like, hey, Tara, did you put your garlic in the ground yet? So... I planted, we had a video, it wasn't titled anything about carrots, but last week, I planted carrots in tires. I have failed 4 years in a row to grow carrots, and I felt like such a failure as a homestead, because it's a carrot. Like, it's supposed to be easy, right? They just would not grow in our soil. I'd plant them, they'd get washed out by the rains, or I'd plant them, and the soil was too heavy, they wouldn't really grow, all sorts of reasons, 4 years in a row. So this year I just took tires and I planted them in tires, and they did so well.
The girls had a fun
and
time
it was fun because we
Yeah.
just got a shovel and just flipped the tires over, and then the carrots just fell out. You didn't have to dig in the ground or anything. It was so easy. And so now I'm kind of like, maybe I'll plant my onions and garlic that way. And see how they do.
I think our soil wasn't tilled well enough.
Yeah.
It just wasn't loose enough for carrots. Let's see. Embracing Our Life says, I love dehydrating shredded onions.
Mm-hmm.
Great for soups, salads, etc. It doesn't last too long like the other stuff.
Okay, it's good to know.
Silver Moon says, Mr. P's going to be a singer like Daddy. We'll see. I don't know.
I do really want to get a dehydrator for mason jars since I have so many, not dehydrator, vacuum sealer for mason jars since I have so many mason jars. That's something that's kind of on my to-do list coming up maybe this winter. to be able to dehydrate and save more things.
Pam says, I will say this on dehydrating. Don't do sliced dill pickles. They turn to 100% salt.
Oh, okay.
I can see that.
How
do you make like a dill pickle chip, though?
A dill pickle?
Oh, you probably just have to fry it, right?
A dill pickle chip? Isn't that just a potato chip flavored like dill pickles?
So.
Is that what you mean? Pickles, though, are favorite. Cucumbers are coming in. I know some of you wanted that sweet pickle recipe.
Oh.
It's coming up. Give me another month. I need more cucumbers.
I'm telling you, that sweet and with a little bit of spice. It's a little hot. It's got jalapeno in it too, but it's mostly sweet with a little bit of some. Oh, I can put those on anything. I'm not a big pickle person, but those pickles I can literally eat on. If we make any kind of a sandwich at our house, it has those pickles on it.
Yep, it's our favorite.
No matter what kind of sandwich it is. Pam said, oh no, I already read that one. Whoops.
So.
Sorry.
I don't know. This isn't really your subject.
It's not. Yeah, the preserving the food's not really my speciality.
Okay, Iris Lady says we plant garlic at the edges of our raised beds as a mold deterrent. That's a great idea. Our dog is like the most amazing mole and vole hunter. Unfortunately, the yard now has these huge holes in it where he digs them up, but she finds them like. Used to have such mole problems. I mean, they were just destroying the yard. Now the dog has destroyed the yard, get them, but she's gotten almost all of them.
I swear she gets at least 1 or 2 a week. We should. I think we've talked about this before, but we should rent her out. She's that good at going after moles and stuff.
And I'd never seen a real mole up close, and the first time she dropped one on the porch, because that's what she does with them, I just thought God must have been giggling to himself when he created the moles. He's like, all right, big petal hands, no arms. They're the funniest looking animals. They have these huge hands and like no arms. They must just look like this in the ground all the time. So.
Embracing Our Life says, if you dehydrate mini marshmallows, they don't shrink, but kids and grown-ups love them.
Oh, okay.
Not a healthy treat.
But still yummy though, right? I bet it's got a nice like a satisfying crunch to it. Lois, yes, thank you for joining us, Lois.
You caught us live.
You caught us live.
I'm trying to think what else we do preserving things. Pretty much covered it all, I think. That's the 2 live streams.
A hard lesson is I shredded 20 pounds of carrots to dehydrate and layered them too thick and they molded. Yeah, you have to. That's the one kind of negative of a dehydrator. Like, you really want to be able to jam everything in there, like, to get the most out of your time, but you got to be really careful. If there's overlapping and stuff, it doesn't dry right, or if you're not really careful about making things slice the same size, they don't all dry at the same speed, and it could cause problems. So that's probably the downside. You can, by the way, if you do not own a dehydrator, you can absolutely dehydrate in the oven. What I would recommend doing is using a cookie sheet, like a big one, and then like one of those cookie cooling off racks sitting on top of the sheet, and put your sliced bananas or strawberries or whatever you want to dehydrate on top of that rack. That allows the airflow. And then I believe you put your oven on 180 degrees,
Who's that baby?
And then it works just like a dehydrator, except a little bit faster. And you can still make healthy treats or safe food without having to spend really any money at all. So I'm not sure about that. Show him your fang teeth, Count Dracula.
Who's that handsome feller? Huh? Who's that handsome feller?
Yeah. What would you suggest for someone just getting into having a garden? Easiest things to grow? That's a great question. So some of that will depend on where you live. But in general, things that tend to grow well no matter what your soil is are like squash plants. Those are very simple. Things that grow quickly like spinach and radishes, you have to grow them during the colder times of the year, so spring and then again in the fall, but they grow really fast. So you can kind of try, planting some radishes, and in 30 days, you have a radish to eat, and it's not a big, 180-day intensive crop like something like a pumpkin or certain tomato varieties or pepper varieties can be. But the biggest thing to do is to get online and look for planting zone, and then what town and state you live in, or if you're not in America, your city and country. And then you'll get pulled up a map, and it'll say, I'm your zone whatever. We're zone 5B. and then it'll give you a planting calendar, and it'll kind of tell you what things can grow. Because some zones, the growing time's too short. You can't grow, peppers if there's only 3 months of warm weather where you live or something like that. So you want to look at what's good for your area so that you're not disappointed. So
let's see. Pam says frozen mixed vegetables is what I have trouble with because the green beans take longer. Oh, I can see that.
Because they're bigger.
Refining Root says, when's the next canning video? I click your playlist of canning while I can. Plus the kiddos love to watch as well.
Well, so I'm working on a canning video. It'll be up. It'll probably be Saturday. I wanted to have it up for Wednesday, but I asked on Facebook and on YouTube for what canning questions that you have that you feel like aren't answered in canning videos, and you guys came up with some great questions. So I'm going to do that video. But as far as this is how you can XYZ, it's probably going to be a few more weeks. Right now it's hard to can because we're still taking Annie to therapy 5 times a week. And that just leaves Saturday. But I don't want to spend all Saturday canning. I feel like the kids need mommy and daddy time. But after first week of August, her therapy goes way down, and then we'll have our garden haul. Then there'll probably be a lot of canning videos. So hang in there. But we do have that one frequently asked questions video coming up, which has been a lot of fun to put together because you guys had some great questions.
Let's see, canes in southern Indiana. Okay. They're probably. You think they're similar to what we can grow?
No, you'll probably be 2 zones away. We're right on the edge of the zone. You might be zone. Thinking about which ways it goes. I think as it gets colder, the numbers get smaller. You're probably zone 4 or maybe a high 3. So you would just want to Google, and some of it too. It's not just about where you are in the United States. Sometimes it's like your altitude. So even though we're zone 5 and Dean Family Acres, which is another channel that we're pretty familiar with and we enjoy their content, technically he's on the same longitudinal line as us pretty much, but he's 3 zones higher. It's a lot hotter just because of altitude differences and things like that. So Lady in the Mountain says you can even dehydrate cooked ground beef. Yes, you can dehydrate meats. I mean, obviously that's jerky, right? But people will do that, and then they'll store it with their vegetables, and you can have rehydrated soup later. I have never dehydrated meat, but I think that's something that I would like to try in the future. Just another thing to try. Yeah.
Embracing Our Life says the marshmallows taste like Lucky Charm marshmallows. Ooh. Let's see. Tara says, I was thinking 6A.
Tara, you might be. I think if you actually Google our town, it's listed as 6 or 6A, but I know specifically because we are right on the big river that it changes our zone and it makes the climate different. And so I follow 5B, I find is what works best for me. So you're not necessarily wrong. I know that we kind of have a microclimate because we're right in the Bluff Valley, right on the river, and it really controls the temperature. It really is different. When we drive from home to church, we'll be like, oh, it's not too bad. And then we get to church in the winter, and we're like, it's negative 10 degrees here. And we've only driven 20 miles. So the river really affects the climate. So,
man, you got so many words tonight, dude.
So, all right, I think that might be all we have for tonight. Sam's got more studying to do. You got a midterm tomorrow, right? No?
I want to see if I can get a good baby laugh. It's not exactly a midterm test. It's just the chapters that we're going over this week test. But yeah, they say it's the biggest, hardest test we have other than the final in this term in these classes. So big test tomorrow. So yes, I do need to do some more studying.
And I need to get all of our other little people to bed, including this little person. So thank you so much for watching. We should be able to, let me look at my calendar before I say this out loud. It's today. Yeah, we should be able to live next week. We'll find something fun to chat about. If you have any suggestions on what you want to chat about, let us know. Because we just like talking to y'all. It's always fun. So, you want to say bye, Mr. P? Say bye. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching.
Have a good night. Thanks for popping on. We'll talk to you guys later.